Do you feel like you're telling your story in your business and nothing is happening? Like your business isn't growing and you're just not seeing any of the results that you thought you would from being more authentic and personal? You're probably making one of these 3 storytelling mistakes. And the worst part is that you don't even know that it's happening because you don't have anybody giving you feedback on storytelling. So in this episode, I'm going to fix that and I'm going to tell you the 3 most common mistakes that I see when entrepreneurs try to bring storytelling into their business. And most importantly, I'm going to tell you how to fix these 3 problems so that you can build authority and connection with your perfect customers and increase sales in your business and see the results that you are looking for. This is That Storytelling Podcast, and I'm going to give you the full story on how to build a successful business with storytelling in 2025. So get comfy, grab your headphones, start folding your laundry, whatever you need to do, and let's jump in. As you probably know by now, if you're watching this video, storytelling isn't just nice to have. It can be the missing piece between a struggling business and one that makes sales consistently and reliably. So you might be telling your story in your business now and spinning your wheels and wondering what you're doing wrong. And you're probably telling the wrong story to the wrong group of people. So what is the right story and how do you tell it to the right people? Well, I love this quote by Bernadette Jiwa in The Right Story. And she says, "The right story is one that is trusted. It is believed because it is told by the right person for the right reasons, in the right way, at the right time, to the right people." I love this because it's not just about the story. It's about the timing. It's about you as the storyteller. It's about telling it in the right way and at the right time. She also goes on to say the success or failure of our ideas depends on us telling the right story. We can only do that by being clear about the change we want to create and why, and then bringing enough of the right people with us on the journey. So I want to break that down a little bit because Bernadette is giving us the roadmap to find the right story and tell it to the right people at the right time in the right way. So she's saying you can find the right story by focusing on the change that you want to make in the world. And this is so much bigger than asking yourself, why do I do what I do and why did I create my business? It's really about asking yourself, if I could fix the world in one meaningful way, what would that be? Or what tiny corner of the internet can I change for the better? And why am I the right person to do that? Then you need to bring enough of the right people along on the journey with you so that they can experience that change. And these are very specific people. These are the people who are hungry for the change that you want to create. They're not the general masses. They're not the people who are going to make your content go viral. It starts with 100 people who will truly believe in your cause and who need this change the most. This is really about building your very own movement and being super clear about who this movement is for and what it aims to achieve. Then you can tell the right story to the right people. I always say your dream life starts with telling the right story to the right people. And I believe that this is true because I built a business and a life that I love by telling stories to a very specific group of people. And I knew from the beginning what kinds of stories I wanted to tell because I already knew the change that I would love to see in the world and exactly who that change was for. This clarity partly comes from being a journalist and a writer my whole life. I've always wanted to create some kind of change in the world, and I've always known that working with women specifically around their stories and giving them more space to express themselves creatively is something that I'm very, very passionate about. I'm also really passionate about business and entrepreneurship. So when it came time for me to start my own business, I knew that the change that I wanted to create was something about women expressing themselves creatively in the business world. When I started my Instagram account, I was looking for problems that I could solve, and I saw so much sameness around me. People were using the exact same stock footage, the same hooks, the same viral trending audio. They were copying what everyone else was doing doing because they thought that it's what they had to do in order to be successful. But what they were really doing was hiding. They were afraid to be seen. They were afraid to be different. They were afraid to take risks. And they were afraid to speak up and say what they really wanted and what kind of change they really wanted to create in the world. I also saw a lot of people who didn't have a compelling reason to be doing what they were doing online. And what I mean by this is they were just chasing quick and easy cash, which doesn't really exist, by the way, but they were doing it more to change their own life rather than to create change in somebody else's life. And so their stories fell flat. Most of the time, they weren't even aware that they were supposed to be telling stories in their business, but a story still comes through nonetheless. Even if you're not telling a story intentionally, you are still telling a story by not telling a story. You're telling people that you don't have a unique point of view. You're telling people that whatever you're doing is not for them because they don't see themselves in your content. And you're telling people that whatever you're doing, you're actually doing it for yourself because there's no consideration for what your audience actually needs from you. And that comes across even if you're not telling any stories in your business. You're just telling the wrong story to a lot of the wrong people. And I saw so many entrepreneurs out there trying to figure out what they were doing wrong. They were buying more templates or more viral hooks to see if they could make their content work. And maybe it would work one or two times, but then it would kind of fizzle out and go nowhere. They were really trying to game the system, and that will never work because business isn't a slot machine that can be hacked. There's no way to get around the need to establish trust and authority with real people before you can actually build a business. There's simply no cheat code for that. And trust and authority come from telling the right stories to very specific people. And maybe you've already been on this journey before. Maybe you've been following me for a while and you're thinking, Ashley, I've been telling my story. I know this. I think I know who my ideal customer is and nothing is happening. I still don't know what I'm doing wrong. And listen, I hear you. Storytelling is nuanced. It is not black and white. Business is also nuanced. It's not black and white. When you combine storytelling and business, it becomes extremely nuanced, extremely not black and white. So today I'm going to tell you the common storytelling mistakes that I see even after people are clear on the change they want to make in the world, who it's for, and why they're the right person to make that change. If you haven't done that work already, just pause here, grab a notebook, and think about what is the change I want to make? Who specifically is that change for? And why am I the person to create that change? And then you can watch the rest of that video. If you are clear on this already, keep going to make sure that you're not making these 3 mistakes because they will stall your progress. And I want to make sure that you see results from your storytelling efforts. So let's dive into mistake number 1, which is oversharing. When I see people making this mistake, it looks like sharing too much personal information that isn't connected to your business and putting yourself at the center of the storytelling rather than your customer. When you're sharing your story for your business, you're doing it so intentionally. You're not sharing your story just to be entertaining. You're not sharing your story to prove that you know something that your customer doesn't know. And you're definitely not sharing your story for the shock value. You're telling your story so that you can connect, build authority, and sell the payoff of working with you simultaneously, all in one story. I want you to remember that your audience is not your best friend. They are your customer. They might eventually care about your life a little bit, but what they care about most is what's in it for them. I know this sounds harsh, but it's really true. Your audience and your customer only cares about your story to the extent that it can solve their problem. So when you share stories that aren't relevant to their very specific problems, they start to wonder, can I really trust this person to solve my problem? Does she really know what she's talking about? And are you even listening to what I need? I like to compare this to the parent-child relationship where the child never really wants to worry about what's going on for the parent, or they shouldn't have to, at least. The parent should be the one constantly worrying about what's going on for the child. In the same way, your customer never wants to have to worry about what's going on for you. They want to feel like you are constantly looking out for them and you are in control. So when you share too much of your story that isn't directly related to solving their problem, they start to feel like the boundary or the relationship is somehow unbalanced and potentially unsafe. And you might be oversharing thinking that you're building more trust, but what you're actually doing is damaging the trust that you have with your customer. So being really intentional and constantly keeping the customer at the center of your storytelling is going to make sure that that relationship stays healthy and strong. And I hear people say all the time, I don't want to share my story because I don't want my business to be all about me. And here's the really good news. Your business is never about you. It is always about the people that you serve. So you do this by choosing very specific stories and even very specific details within those stories to make sure that it is directly relevant to your ideal customers' desires, pain points, and beliefs. And you learn what's relevant simply by speaking to real people. You want to make sure that every story you tell is passing through this filter in your brain. And you're asking yourself, is this relevant to my ideal customer? Is this relevant to my ideal customer? Do they need this specific detail to understand the story, or will it feel like an overshare? Could I leave it out, and could it actually be even more effective? So if you think that you might be oversharing, try to think about these questions before you share anything with your audience and really start to see it as this refinement process where you're taking away everything that doesn't belong and only leaving the pieces that will really resonate with your perfect people. If you feel like you're already doing this and you're still not seeing results, you might be making mistake number 2, which is undersharing. This looks like only sharing tips and tricks and strategies and educational posts with your audience. It can look like never showing your face or using your voice or sharing any kind of real life experiences. And it can look like constantly selling to your audience without establishing any kind of connection. Most people know that this is a problem if you have a business and you're selling online in 2025, because everybody is talking about authenticity these days. But if you have a hard time understanding what authenticity means and how to implement it in your business, it is not your fault and you are not alone. Everybody loves to talk about authenticity, but it's a very nuanced topic that is difficult to teach. And that's why not very many people tell you how to actually do it correctly, especially in the context of business. This leaves a lot of people feeling really confused, like there's a correct way to be authentic on the internet, but nobody's saying exactly what it is. And that can create anxiety. Like if you share in the wrong way, you could destroy your relationship with your clients or make a big mistake that could ruin your business. And you're not wrong to be cautious. Maybe you have a very specific relationship with your clients that requires you to be highly professional, and stepping outside of that pattern feels really scary and it could have really high stakes consequences on your business. And maybe you just listened to mistake number 1 and you're like, I feel even more afraid to share my story now because I don't want to overshare by accident. And so instead, I'm just going to share nothing and I'm going to make everything extremely professional and just do what everybody else in my industry is doing so that I don't make any waves or cause any problems for anybody. I totally get that. And that's why I will never push anybody to just share your story without knowing the context of their business, because every industry and every business within that industry is completely unique. But what I do know is that storytelling applies to every single part of life because it's part of human nature. And so I know for sure that storytelling is a part of your business, and infusing stories into more of your business, specifically in marketing, will have a positive effect on your business. It's just a matter of figuring out exactly which types of stories to tell and how to present them to your customers. So if you're scared to start telling your story or to bring more of your personal life into your business, I'm going to give you permission not to talk about your personal life at all. You can simply start by talking about the change that you want to see in your industry or in your little corner of that industry, and spend some time getting hyper specific about who that change is for and why you are the right person to bring that change to the world. You don't need to share your personal life in any way at this stage. I also want to broaden the definition of a story for you because you might think that it's a personal anecdote about your life or this big heroic tale. And a story can be so many different things. You can tell a story with your branding, with the colors that you choose and the fonts that you choose and the brand photos that you do. You can tell a story by sharing a photo carousel of your week. You don't have to show up on camera and speak every single day in order to tell a story. Speaking on camera every day might not even be the right approach for your industry. There are also other ways to tell stories in your business. Client testimonials are an amazing example of stories that every business should be using. You can also talk about what you believe to be true in your industry and how you do things differently in your specific business. And if you want to get a little bit personal, talk about how you came to those beliefs and how you learned how to do things differently. These are the kinds of personal stories that you can build into almost any industry while maintaining a really strong professional image and establishing yourself as the authority. These are also the kinds of stories that you want customers to see the first time that they come to your Instagram page or your website so that they can really see that you are the right person to work with them. So let's do an example just to bring this home. Let's say that you're a lawyer and you really pride yourself on building human connection with your clients. You don't just see them as another case. You really take the time to get to know them and to deeply support them during some of the most stressful times of their lives, which is when they need lawyers the most. And they walk away feeling so cared for by you, which leads them to tell their family and friends about the amazing experience that they had. But let's say that the word of mouth just isn't cutting it anymore, and you know that you need to get on social media and start promoting yourself. You are so tired of waiting for the phone to ring and being the best kept secret in your area. So you jump on social media and you say, okay, let me see what some of the other lawyers in my area are doing. And you see them all sitting in an office with a beige wall behind them and a dying plant on the windowsill. And they're very stiff and they're talking like they're on the news and they're clearly very uncomfortable. And this isn't going very well for them. And you're not even really sure if it's leading to more sales because they have like 50 followers. And so you walk away feeling really discouraged, like, oh my gosh, is this something that I actually have to do? This doesn't feel like me, but I guess I'll give it a shot. And so you turn on your camera one day and you create a very boring video that looks like everybody else's that you've seen online. And you just can't help but think, this doesn't feel like me. I don't want to do this. Well, what if there was another way? What if you could do something different? What if you could film at the cafe where you love to go every Friday to do your admin work? What if you asked your assistant to ask you some questions rather than speaking directly into the camera like a news anchor? What if you spoke about your passion for helping clients through the most stressful times of their lives and how you came to set up a practice that values human connection over a paycheck? Can you see how these small changes would set you apart from all of the lawyers in your area and attract exactly the kind of clients who really want to be seen and connect with their lawyers? It's not going to attract, let's say, the really big commercial real estate client who doesn't want to connect with their lawyer and just wants to sign contracts all day and get their work done. That is one type of client. They don't want to sit down and get to know their lawyer, so they're not going to come to you. But you are going to get a whole bunch of clients who might be going through really hard times in their lives and want a really compassionate ear and somebody who can guide them through the process. If that person is your ideal client, then you want to tell them stories that make them feel seen. And the background, the ambiance of the video, the way you're speaking, all lend to that kind of storytelling, all without sharing a single detail about your personal life. This is what I mean by storytelling. And I think that people who chronically undershare and are worried about maintaining the relationship with their clients are totally correct. They are trying to figure out how to maintain professionality while being more personal. And this is what I help people do, is not to overshare about your kids, but to find the right kind of story for your brand and portray that every single day in a really seamless and natural way. And of course, all of this would trickle down to the photos that you put on your website, the colors that you choose for your website, the font, maybe the stationery that you choose, and the way that your office is decorated. It all tells a story. And so I give you permission as an undersharer to think about your story in a much bigger and more expansive way, and not just focus on your day-to-day life and what's going on outside of the office. And then maybe through this process, you figure out which parts of your personal life are appropriate to share in your business. And then you become more confident and clear about exactly why you're sharing those pieces of your story. Or maybe not. Maybe you never share anything about your personal story, but you are clear on the overall story that you're telling to your clients. So I am never going to be the one to tell you to just get out there and share your life, because I don't know your business and I don't know your clients and I don't know your reasons for undersharing. But I can promise you that you are already telling a story. And so it's really important to think about what that is, if it's the right story, and if you're telling it to the right people. And that brings me to mistake number 3, which is not having a clear point to your story. Because a good story always has a clear point. There is always a moral to the story. A story should always have a lesson or a piece of information that your audience can take away with them. This is the payoff that your audience gets from listening to your story. When you fail to give a clear payoff or a clear takeaway from a story, you are literally robbing your audience. They just paid you with their attention and they got nothing in return. You're just not following through and holding up your end of the bargain. You might think that you're being clear about the moral of the story, but unless you are bluntly telling your audience exactly what you want them to take away from the story, you are probably not being clear enough. This can look like forgetting to tie your story back to your offer, or not having a clear call to action at the end of the story. It can sound like ending a story with "hope that helps" or "thanks for reading." Don't be afraid to tell your audience exactly what you want them to remember from the story. And don't assume that they will magically get it just because it's clear to you. Stories can be interpreted in so many different ways, which is amazing because that allows you to reach a whole bunch of different people, even when you're being hyper specific about your target audience, because people can take the same information and interpret it in whatever way they want. And so it's your job to wrap it up into a package, tie a pretty bow on it, and hand it to them and say, "This is what I want you to know." Serve it to them on a silver platter so that they know what to do with the information. They need to know exactly what the next step is for them. This can sound like, "This is what I learned from this experience," or "This is why blank is the number one skill to learn in 2025. Or it can sound like, "Comment keyword to get my free guide that will walk you through my signature process to get the exact same result." I know that sometimes this can feel icky because we don't want to feel like we're always selling. But like I said earlier in this episode, your audience knows that you are running a business. And so they want you to respect that relationship between business owner and customer. And you do that by always tying your storytelling back to your business and back to your offer. Otherwise, you're going to leave them thinking, "Why did she just share this with me again?" You need to do the work for them and tie it back to your business so that it is hyper clear that you want them to take the next step with your business, or you want them to see the value in the skill that you offer. Remember, you are strengthening the relationship with your customer when you sell consistently. You're not being icky, you're not being salesy by tying it back to your business. You're actually telling them, "I'm telling you this for a reason, and the reason is that I'm solving your problem and I have your best interests at heart. This isn't about me just telling my story so that you'll feel bad for me or connect with me or feel entertained. I'm telling you this because I want to help you." And when you sell consistently through storytelling, it never feels icky or salesy anyway. It feels very natural and like you're connecting to a real person who genuinely wants to help you, which is the case. We're not pretending to want to help people here. We truly, truly feel like we have a change that we want to make in the world and we are the right people to do it. And so we are doing people a favor by telling them our stories and reminding them how they can work with us at the end. So just remember, you never want to leave your audience hanging at the end of the story. If you're leaving them hanging, you're leaving them wondering, what the heck was that story about? So let's recap these 3 storytelling mistakes. Number 1 is oversharing, which sacrifices authority with your audience. Number 2 is undersharing, which sacrifices connection. And number 3 is not having a point to your story, which sacrifices sales. The goal of storytelling is to build authority, connect, and sell the payoff of working with you, all in the same story. So when you share just the right amount of information and you do so in a way that's really appropriate for your industry and your niche, and you make sure that you have a very clear point to your story and you don't leave your audience hanging, you can do all 3 of these very seamlessly every single day. So my challenge for you is to look at 3 of your most recent reels or newsletters or podcasts and ask yourself, am I making any of these mistakes? And which one can you fix today? Remember, storytelling is a skill that builds over time, so don't expect yourself to be perfect right away. The key is consistency and iteration and making quick changes. So choose one takeaway from this video and commit to implementing it in the next 24 hours. Let me know how you're going to follow through in the comments. And if you want to learn even more, the next Storytelling That Sells challenge is coming up. The link is in the description with a special discount for you, just to say thank you for watching this far into the video. If you like this episode and found it valuable, please leave a 5-star review. It's the easiest way to help this podcast grow. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe and don't forget to hit the little bell notification so that you never miss an episode. I can't wait to share even more storytelling secrets with you next Friday. Have a great week.